Veterinary parasitologist Dr. Michael Dryden from Kansas State University is an expert on ticks and maybe more importantly tick control so we don't get them on our pets. Let's review very briefly before we talk about prevention and what to use and all of that. It seems that people would know, but I want to make a point of it. Why is it a bad thing for ticks to be on our dog, aside from the fact that they're gross?
Well, I think most people recognize that ticks are the #1 vector of diseases in the United States. I mean, Lyme disease, who doesn't know about Lyme disease in the United States? And we can talk about ehrlichiosis, we can talk about Rocky Mountain spotted fever, we can talk about anaplasmosis. I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, there's a number of very serious diseases that these ticks transmit to our dogs, cats, or even, sadly, to ourselves as well.
Yeah, there's a kind of tick-borne disease that cats can get called cytozoonosis that can be deadly.
Highly lethal. In fact, we're around Kansas State University. It's an extremely lethal disease, and in many parts now of the Midwest and into the South are seeing that disease in cats, and it's a really bad disease because most cats will not recover from it.
All right, now you and I have talked before about ticks and the tick population in America, and we've talked about this. If you were to do a census and you were to go out, and you probably would, and count all the ticks there are in the country, if somehow, some way that could be done, there are more ticks spreading more disease today than 50 or 100 years ago or even a decade ago. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's absolutely the case that we have seen an expansion of tick populations and ranges throughout much of North America. And there's a variety of factors. One of the big ones is white-tailed deer populations, in all honesty, which are the major host for two of our very important ticks, the Lone Star tick and also the Lyme disease tick, Ixodes scapularis. So as the population of those deers have exploded, so have the population of those ticks. Also, we've seen changes in the climatic conditions. Historically, now not this last winter, but historically our winters have not been as rough as they were, and that's allowed ticks to survive throughout the winters as well. We've seen change in agricultural practices. We don't have as many people applying insecticides in the environment. So there's an array of reasons, but it's absolutely true that we are seeing more ticks in more places than we have historically.
And there's been, as you mentioned, a proliferation of deer, other wildlife as well, including wild turkeys. And we like that wildlife, and we're moving closer and closer to it. Suburbia is sprawling.
Yep.
Does that have something to do with this as well?
Oh, absolutely. We're living in places we didn't live before as populations have expanded. And so now we're living in areas where those ticks used to exist and wildlife populations are. And my daughter, who lives in Southern California, is a classic example. She lives out near Calabasas in an apartment complex where there used to not be an apartment complex.
Yes.
And every day when she walks her dog picks up ticks.
All right, now it's been, this past winter, a record winter for much of the country. Record cold, record snow. So based on what you said, it would seem that this year, going into the spring and summer, we're not going to see as many ticks as we have before. But you're looking at me like, not quite.
Yeah, you're right. It's not quite that situation, because you have to look at two factors when you look at ticks overwintering. One is cold, and the other is snow cover. And when you have a lot of snow, that's essentially an igloo for a tick, and they do very well underneath that snow. So if you have a cold, dry winter, that's bad for ticks. But if you have a winter that's cold but there's a lot of snow, ticks don't care. And in fact, we've already seen that, particularly in places in the Midwest. Now we've had a few warm days, the snow's melted away, we're already picking up ticks.
All right, so what do? You don't want the ticks on your dogs. Or, for people that have indoor-outdoor cats, or even take their cats out on a leash harness walk, I mean, things that are enriching for the cat,
Yep.
safe for the cat, but now they're exposed to ticks. So what do you do about it?
Well, you've got to use an effective tick product on your dogs and cats. And again, what you've got to do is you've got to talk to your veterinarian in your area, because we see different ticks in different parts of the country. There's at least 9 different tick species in North America that routinely get on dogs and cats depending on where you live. So you have to talk to your veterinarian. What ticks are they going to be exposed to? What disease are they going to be exposed to? And what products can be most effective? And there's several very effective products out there. And your veterinarian can prescribe those products for you, but you've got to use them. And you've got to put them on once every 30 days if they're topical spot-ons, or the effective collars as often as your veterinarian recommends replacing those collars. But you've got to use those products prior to the tick season.
Sometimes people think, well, I'm not seeing the ticks, either on my dog or in the environment, so they're probably not there. I'm suggesting, and you tell me if this makes sense, that you ask your veterinarian, big picture, whether your veterinarian is seeing ticks in the geographic area where you live.
Well, the veterinarian is kind of the repository of information because all these pets are coming through that office. And so the veterinarian is going to pick up the evidence that ticks are active early in the year or long before you may. And let's face it, we're talking about tick-transmitted diseases. So we want to be able to kill those ticks before they can transmit the disease. So the fact that you see ticks and then you respond to treat it, it may be too late. You need those products on your dogs prior to the tick activity season in your area.
Yeah, and tick disease does certainly impact quality of life at the very least, and may be lethal or shorten life for dogs. For cats, the one tick disease that's a concern may indeed be lethal. See your veterinarian to learn more. Dr. Dryden, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.